Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me here on the Royal House of Ra. I am your host, Mentuhotep Khufu El Ra. Today's show is about Dynasty XI, and this is episode 14, and it's also about the Middle Kingdom. This is the beginning of the this dynasty. Dynasty 11 is the dynasty that the Middle Kingdom had began. Okay, so there's 6 pharaohs of this dynasty. Now, this dynasty, Dynasty 11, is considered the Theban dynasty, and this dynasty began in 2134 BC to 1991 BC. Okay, so this is the beginning of this dynasty from this period. So we're going to go into this. Now, before we go into this, I have to apologize because I was supposed to air earlier at 11 a.m. I had some technical difficulties as towards conducting a live stream. So I had to find a new program to be able to do live streaming. So that is what I'm doing right now. So please forgive me for being late for broadcasting. Due to technical issues is why I'm airing later than what I was earlier. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go into these pharaohs of this dynasty. Now, let's start with this. The first pharaoh was Intef I, which he ruled between 2134 BC to 2117 BC. And then you had Intef II, who ruled between 2117 BC to 2069 BC. Then you had Intef III, who reigned between 2069 BC to 2060 BC. Then you had Mentuhotep I, who reigned 2060 BC to 2010 BC. Then you had Mentuhotep II, who reigned between 2010 BC to 1998 BC. Then you had Mentuhotep III, who reigned 1997 BC to 1991 BC, and he was the last pharaoh of this dynasty. Okay, so now in this dynasty, they had where there was some strife, some political strife, where there was, I believe, there was a vizier who overthrew, I think, the last pharaoh of this dynasty, which was Mentuhotep II. Okay. All right. So that, so that's what we're going to do here. Now, before we go on, I want please subscribe to the show and hit that notification button so you know when new shows will air. Also, share the show with others and like the show. Now, as I stated before, it doesn't cost money. The videos on YouTube are pretty much free, no cost to you, so it shouldn't be difficult to click these buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I appreciate all those who support this show and continue to do so. Thank you for doing this, for supporting the show. So let's get into this. Hold on for just a moment. Give me a moment, please. I had someone who I think call who knocking on my door. Hold for just a moment, please. All right, let's get going here. Sorry for that interruption. Now let's begin. Strictly speaking, the Middle Kingdom starts with the reunification of Kemet under the fourth king of Dynasty XI, Mentuhotep I. The dynasty itself began with a series of 3 kings. In fact, hardly more than nomarchs who ruled from Thebes, all known as Intef or Intef. They were each involved in struggles against the northern kings of Acropolis. Increasingly, their horse names indicate more their aspirations than reality. Intef II called himself king of Upper and Lower Kemet, whereas his control did not extend beyond the Thebes area, and Intef III gave himself the name Mentuhotep Nefer, or beautiful and strong champion. Furthermore, they curiously reverted to having their horse names in a sekret, with only their birth names in the cartouche. The 3 Intefs were buried in great tombs in the Dra Abu el-Naga, an area to the north of the Theban plain on the west bank, close to where the road starts into the later Valley of the Kings. Because of their role of doorways or porticles, these have been called Saf tombs, Saf being an Arabic word for road. There is now little indication of their once royal status. One of the so-called tomb robbing papyrus dating from the reign of Ramses the IX, 1115 BC, records that a check on the tomb of Wahanki, Intef II, found the burial to be intact. It notes furthermore that there was a still in front of the tomb on which the king was shown with his favorite hunting dog, Bakra. Auguste Marriott found the broken lower half of the still in 1860. In fact, there was not one dog on it, but 5. What remains of the inscription indicates that in territorial disputes against the Acropolitan dynasties, Intef II established his boundaries as far north from Thebes as the 10th nome, Anthropolis, taking the 8th nome of sacred Abydos on the way. His successor Intef III pushed the border yet further north, almost to Asia, and it was at this frontier that Mentuhotep I, sometimes known as Mentuhotep II, fought for control of the whole country. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go into Mentuhotep I. We're going to discuss him. Now he was the king of the reunification here. This is during the time of the Middle Kingdom, and we're going to go into that, discussing that part of the Middle Kingdom. So we can start, but we're going to start off with Mentuhotep, and then we're going to go into that. Okay, the reign of Mentuhotep I reached its pinnacle some years after he came to the throne with the reunification of Kemet. The political progression of his career is eloquently attested by the series of Horus names he adapted. First, he who gives heart to the two lands, then land of the white crown, Upper Kemet, and finally uniter of the two lands. The king's birth name, Mentuhotep, meaning Muntu, is content, Muntu being the Theban god of war, also seemed appropriate since the first part of his reign at least saw a great deal of bitter fighting. Indeed, in the 1920s, the American archaeologist Herbert Winlock found a mass tomb at Thebes near Mentuhotep's temple containing the bodies of 60 soldiers slain in battle. They had almost certainly been called in Nubia and brought back for burial in Egypt. One of the earliest war cemeteries, the militaristic theme is also evident in two large models of wooden soldiers found in the tomb of a local prince or general, Mentuhotep at Aswaya in 1894. One represented a troop of 40 marching Kemetan pikemen, each armed with spear and hide shield, and the other a similarly sized group of Nubian archers. Okay. Hold on for a moment. Okay, now the turning point in the fortunes of the Theban camp came in year 14 of Mentuhotep's reign. In the Dynasty Abydos Nome rose up in revolt. Mentuhotep took immediate steps to crush it in a series of battles which eventually led to his overall rule of Kemet. By year 39 of his reign, he was well established as uniter of the two lands. A scratch inscription documents an expedition mounted in the same year to Abisko, 17 miles 27 kilometers south of the First Cataract. Similar records occur at Shat Rakel, where the king was accompanied by his chancellor Oktoi, and in the Wadi Hamamat quarries. The mortuary temple of Mentuhotep I enjoyed an unusually long reign of 50 years at a time when most kings were short-lived, the later part of which, following reunification, saw a return to peace and relative prosperity in Kemet. Building works at numerous sites, among them El Kablin, Todd, Daya El Bolarus, Deidre, and Alabas, all testify to the stability now ruling the land. Mentuhotep's greatest project, however, was the temple tomb he erected on the west bank at Thebes in the impressive Great Bay of Cliffs at Deir el-Bahari, south of his predecessor Saf's tombs. Why he picked that spot and not the prime position nearby, later chosen by the 18th Dynasty Queen Hatshepsut, is a mystery. Nevertheless, the design of the temple tomb was innovative, a great step podium with square-cut pillars around it, and the next terrace with a hypostyle hall at the rear at the base of the cliffs. In the plain in front of the temple is the entrance to a deep tunnel known as the Ba el Hassan, the Gate of the Horsemen, so called because Howard Carter's horse stumbled into it and led to its discovery. The tunnel led to a chamber beneath the temple, which held an impressive seated stone statue of the king. He is depicted in the tight white headset costume and wearing the red crown, but with a black face, thereby assimilating him to Osiris as an underworld deity of fertility. A number of Mentuhotep's high officials, including the Chancellor Atoi and the Vizier Dagi and Api and the Chief Steward Hinunu, choose to be buried close to their master's tomb, some having also served his son. Dagi's splendid limestone sarcophagus had a particularly full version painted on its interior of the coffin text. Magic spells introduced in the Middle Kingdom designed to protect the soul of the deceased on the journey into the afterworld, similar to the pyramid text. Okay, so in Mentuhotep's the first reign, he had to crush rebellion in that reign, and you notice that a lot of these pharaohs always had a large grouping of soldiers that would travel with them when they either travel abroad or they go to certain areas. These pharaohs would have these individuals that would travel with them when they go on these expeditions or other journeys. So, now we're going to go into, we're going to discuss about Mentuhotep II and discuss about his reign. And I believe his reign was kind of short. It was like 12 years. And he ascended the throne as an elder, at an elder age. So we're going to go into him and discuss about his reign. All right, so give me a moment. All right, let's go into this. All right, the long reign of Mentuhotep I was used to good advantage, allowing the king to bequeath to his son, Sekhare Mentuhotep II, the throne of a flourishing country. It also meant that Mentuhotep II was relatively elderly when he came to power in 2010 BC, and indeed he was only to rule for 12 years. Despite the brevity of his reign, the new king continued the policy pursued by his predecessors of maintaining a defensive attitude towards the neighbors on the northern frontiers, as well as looking keenly to the south of the First Cataract to trade goods. So, from this period, the kings of this, the pharaohs of this dynasty, the 11th dynasty, had they were aggressive to their neighbors to the north and expanded their borders further northward into the territories, and they also conducted trades within the First Cataract. Okay, so this is what go on. This was what was going on at that time, and so that this is great information here. I really love this, and I hope that you guys love it too. But let's go further into this. Mentuhotep II carried out a number of building works, including temples and shrines, and he eventually initiated a series of expeditions to gather raw materials. One such excursion in year 8 of his reign, recorded on a long inscription in the Wadi Hamat, was led by his steward Hinunu, who was sent there to obtain suitable stone for statues to be erected in the temples. The expedition seems to have been the first to the area for some time, since Hindu took 3,000 soldiers with him, and that was only after local rebels had been cleared from the road by other troops. Hindu sank a total of 12 wells en route and made sure that his force was adequately provided for, everyone having a leather bottle, a carrying pole, 2 jars of water, and 20 loaves a day. Furthermore, in that hard terrain, the asses were laden with sandals. After his death in 1998 BC, Mentuhotep II was probably buried in a bay in the cliffs to the south of his father's great monument at Deir el-Bahari. Little remains there except for a causeway that apparently ends at a sloping passage going into the rock. Hieroglyphic graffiti scratched on the rocks in the area by priests of the mortuary cult at least indicate that the king found his resting place somewhere close by. Papyrus says that there was a period of 7 years without a king after Mentuhotep II. Into this lacuna must fit Nepti Harari Mentuhotep III and his short reign of about 6 years. Records of this shadowy king are sparse. His name, together with that of Amenhotep I, occurs on a fragment of a slate bowl found at Leshet in the first nome, and must date to the latter's reign as first king of the 12th dynasty. Mentuhotep III, vizier and governor of the south, was also called Amenhotep, and it seems highly probable that he and Amenhotep I are one and the same. The vizier Amenhotep is well attested from a long inscription that he left in the Wadi Hamat. He records that he went with an army of 10,000 men into the Hold on for a moment. All right. Excuse me, I keep getting these interruptions. Give me a, okay, great. Sorry for that. He records that he went with an army of 10,000 men into the Wati to seek and retrieve a fine block of stone suitable for the lid of the king's sarcophagus. They were led to the block by a pregnant gazelle which, having dropped its young on the stone to mark it, was immediately sacrificed upon it. A further wonder occurred with a shower of rain. Eventually, the huge block was detached from the rock, and Amenemhet returned with it to Thebes. Unfortunately, neither the tomb nor the sarcophagus of Mentuhotep III has ever been found. Perhaps the king was never able to use the stone, since it seems that Amenemhet, with the backing of his 10,000 men, overthrew his master and proclaimed himself king, thus in what was rapidly becoming the norm, founded a new dynasty. So Amenemhet returned to Thebes and he overthrew his master. So this, like I said, this was a period where they were going back and forth, overthrowing dynasties and stuff like that. But see, this is a very significant understanding of what was going on in that period between the back and forth between the different kings there. So what I like to say, thank you for joining me here on the show. The next show will appear next week, and we will have that show live at 5 p.m. Central Time and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. Pacific Time. So once again, thank you for joining me here on the Royal House of Ra. I am your host, Amentuhotep El-Ra, and the next episode would be episode 15, and we will be discussing Dynasty XII. So once again, thank you for joining me here, and take care, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.